Embracing Stoic philosophy in the face of disrespect. The ancient Stoic philosophers taught that inner peace comes from focusing on what we can control, our own thoughts, actions, and responses, and accepting what we cannot. Disrespect is a natural part of human relationships, yet it doesn't need to disturb our equilibrium. When we meet disrespect with calm, wisdom, and resilience, we preserve our dignity and stay true to our principles. What is Stoicism? Stoicism, a philosophy developed in ancient Greece and Rome, teaches that the path to happiness lies in mastering oneself, rather than trying to control others or the world around us. Figures like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca championed these ideas, which have stood the test of time and remain relevant today. By integrating Stoic practices, we can approach disrespect with grace and strength. 1. Focus on your inner character, not external approval. One of the most empowering and transformative ideas in Stoicism is the principle of focusing on inner character over seeking external validation. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most prominent Stoic philosophers, frequently reminded himself that the key to a fulfilled life lies in being true to oneself, regardless of how others perceive us. In a world where people often judge and criticize based on external factors, Stoicism urges us to cultivate internal strength, ensuring that our actions and sense of worth come from within, not from the fleeting opinions of others. When we face disrespect, it is easy to be swayed by the words or actions of others. We may feel hurt or angry, but Stoic philosophy teaches us that we have the power to choose how we react. Instead of allowing disrespect to shake us, we can redirect our focus toward our inner values, grounding ourselves in what we truly believe and stand for. Define your core values. The first step in focusing on your inner character is to clearly define your core values. Knowing what you stand for helps solidify your sense of self-worth, making it independent of how others see you or treat you. The Stoics believed that virtue, or living in alignment with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, is the highest good. These values form the foundation of a strong, resilient self that is unaffected by external circumstances. When dealing with disrespect, it can be powerful to reflect on the traits that you most value: honesty, kindness, patience, courage, or integrity. When you define these values, you give yourself a clear internal compass. This allows you to act from a place of personal conviction rather than reacting emotionally to others' behavior. To make this principle practical, take time to write down your core values. Keep them somewhere visible so that when you feel disrespected or questioned by others, you can return to these values and remind yourself of what truly matters. Ask yourself questions like, am I acting in alignment with my core values right now? When you know that your actions reflect your true self, you no longer need to seek validation from others. Their opinions, whether positive or negative, no longer hold the power to disrupt your peace of mind. Build a resilient mindset. A resilient mindset is one that doesn't crumble under the weight of external judgments or disrespect. Disrespect often feels like a personal attack, but Stoic thinkers like Epictetus taught that this feeling arises because we perceive others' words or actions as a threat to our self-worth. However, as Epictetus urged, we should not let an initial negative impression knock us off our feet. Instead, we should take a step back and engage our rational mind. In his discourses, Epictetus suggests responding to disrespect with calmness. Don't let the force of an impression when it first hits you knock you off your feet. Just say to it, hold on a moment, let me see who you are and what you represent. Let me put you to the test. This moment of pause is crucial. It allows us to examine whether the disrespectful words or actions hold any real merit or are simply expressions of the other person's biases, insecurities, or misunderstandings. By questioning the validity of the disrespect, we can often dismiss it as mere noise. In this way, we avoid internalizing harmful comments or actions. Building this mental resilience means that over time, we develop a natural ability to respond thoughtfully, rather than impulsively, when faced with disrespect. This process requires practice but leads to a profound sense of emotional freedom. Reject the need for approval. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is the rejection of the need for approval from others. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me, we all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." This observation highlights a common human tendency: placing more importance on how others see us than how we view ourselves. However, this need for external validation can undermine our self-confidence and peace of mind. To reject the need for approval, remind yourself that true respect comes from within, not from others' opinions. The Stoics believed that our inner peace is best preserved when we cease relying on others to define our self-worth. Rather than measuring our success by how others treat us, we should focus on living in alignment with our values and principles. By learning to value your own opinion over that of others, you develop an internal source of strength. This doesn't mean disregarding all feedback from others, but it does mean that their opinions no longer define your worth. When your sense of self is rooted in who you are, rather than in what others think of you, you remain unshaken by disrespect. You can confidently walk your path, knowing that your integrity is intact, and that the opinions of others are not a reflection of your true value. 2. Practice emotional discipline and mindful response. One of the cornerstones of Stoic philosophy is emotional discipline, the ability to control impulsive reactions and respond with thoughtfulness, especially in moments of challenge. In dealing with disrespect, emotions like anger, frustration, or sadness are natural, but Stoic thinkers like Epictetus taught us to view these emotions as signals rather than forces that dictate our actions. By mastering emotional discipline, we can maintain our composure and act in a manner that reflects our true character. Observe your emotions without acting on them. The Stoics believed that we are not our emotions. Instead, we are the ones who experience them. Epictetus famously compared emotions to visitors, saying we should allow them to come, observe them without judgment, and then let them leave. This perspective allows us to separate ourselves from our emotions, granting us the freedom to choose how to respond. When someone disrespects you, a surge of anger or hurt may arise. In that moment, rather than immediately reacting, the Stoic approach is to pause and observe your emotions. This simple step of self-reflection allows you to examine the underlying cause of your reaction. Ask yourself, is this anger truly necessary? What does this emotion reveal about me? Often, a moment of reflection will show that the emotion is not tied to a real threat, but to our own expectations or insecurities. In fact, by taking a step back, you might realize that the disrespect was more about the other person's struggles than your own worth. For example, if you feel angered by someone's rude comment, pause before reacting. Ask yourself, why does this comment affect me? Is this person's judgment more important than my inner peace? Often, we realize that the emotion is driven by an attachment to our ego or an unexamined expectation of how others should treat us. By simply observing these emotions without acting on them, we gain the space to choose our response consciously. Practice the pause. One of the most powerful Stoic techniques is the premeditatio malorum, or premeditation of evils. This involves mentally rehearsing potential challenges, setbacks, or insults before they happen, which prepares the mind to respond with clarity and composure when these events arise. Stoics would visualize scenarios where they might face difficulties, including disrespect, and practice how they would handle them with calm and grace. When you're faced with disrespect, this practice allows you to pause and reflect, knowing that you anticipated such challenges in advance. The pause is not just about taking a deep breath, it's about recognizing that you have the power to control your reaction, no matter the external situation. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, frequently reminded himself that external events, including the behavior of others, are outside of his control. What he could control, however, was his response. By practicing the pause, you can slow down the emotional flood and respond with intentionality rather than impulsiveness. For instance, if someone disrespects you in a meeting or social setting, pause for a moment before reacting. Acknowledge the emotional surge, but remind yourself that you've anticipated this. The pause gives you the space to choose a response that is aligned with your values, rather than being swept up in an immediate, emotional reaction. Choose rational over emotional responses. Stoicism teaches us that while emotions are natural, they are not always reliable guides for decision-making. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This powerful reminder encourages us to rise above our immediate emotional impulses and think through situations rationally, especially when dealing with disrespect. When someone disrespects you, the natural reaction might be to feel angry, defensive, or even vengeful. However, the Stoic path calls us to respond with reason and alignment with our core values. Rather than focusing on the offense or the person who disrespects you, focus on the best course of action that reflects who you are and the values you uphold. Ask yourself, what is the best response in this moment that aligns with my values of respect, patience, and self-discipline? Rationally processing the situation in this way allows you to remain composed and prevents you from falling into emotional extremes. By engaging your logical mind, you take back control from the emotional reaction and instead act in a manner that reflects your true self, rather than being swept up by momentary anger or frustration. This approach not only helps to maintain emotional balance but also strengthens your inner resilience. The more you practice responding thoughtfully, the more capable you become at handling disrespect with dignity and calmness, regardless of the situation. 3. Seek wisdom and learn from every encounter. In Stoic philosophy, every experience, including encounters with disrespect, is seen as an opportunity for growth and learning. Stoics do not view misfortune or negative experiences as purely bad. Instead, they see them as chances to develop resilience, deepen wisdom, and refine their character. Disrespect, in particular, offers a unique opportunity for self-examination and learning, provided we approach it with a Stoic mindset. Turn disrespect into a learning opportunity. The Stoics embraced adversity as a means to develop strength and wisdom. Seneca, in his writings, emphasized that life's misfortunes, whether they are external events or the disrespect of others, are vital tools for growth. He famously wrote, "The bravest sight in the world is to see a great man struggling against adversity." This idea reinforces the Stoic belief that it is through challenges that we become stronger. Disrespect, while painful, is an opportunity to practice virtues such as patience, humility, and composure. When faced with disrespect, remind yourself that this is not just an offense to endure, but a test to pass. The way you respond to disrespect can serve as a measure of your personal growth. Rather than reacting emotionally or defensively, view the situation as a challenge that, if handled well, can cultivate greater resilience and self-control. By consciously choosing to rise above the disrespect and respond with integrity, you transform the negative encounter into a stepping stone for personal growth. Seneca also pointed out that adversity doesn't just strengthen our external actions, it builds our internal fortitude. He observed that true greatness is shown in the ability to maintain one's integrity and composure even when faced with the harshest of external circumstances. By viewing disrespect through this lens, you can turn a potentially damaging experience into a powerful opportunity for inner strength. Reflect on your reactions. Every encounter, especially those that trigger strong emotions, offers a valuable moment for self-reflection. After a disrespectful encounter, take the time to examine how you reacted. The Stoic practice of prasoche, or mindful attention, encourages self-awareness in every situation, allowing us to grow from each experience. Ask yourself, how did I react in this situation? Was it in line with my values of patience, dignity, and self-respect? Self-reflection allows you to recognize patterns in your behavior and gain insight into your emotional triggers. If your reaction was not aligned with your Stoic values, use the opportunity to identify areas for growth. This practice doesn't demand perfection, rather, it invites continual improvement. Over time, with consistent reflection, you will become more adept at managing your emotional responses and less affected by the negative behavior of others. For instance, if you reacted angrily to disrespect, reflect on why you felt compelled to do so. Was it out of a desire to defend your ego? Was it because you expected others to treat you in a particular way? Recognizing these motivations allows you to respond more mindfully in the future, strengthening your resilience and emotional discipline. Cultivate empathy rather than resentment. One of the most profound Stoic teachings is the idea of empathy, especially in the face of adversity. The Stoics taught that people's actions, including disrespect, are often driven by their own inner turmoil, fear, insecurity, frustration, or confusion. Rather than internalizing the disrespect and reacting with anger or resentment, Stoicism encourages us to respond with understanding. When someone disrespects you, remind yourself that their behavior is likely more about them than it is about you. They may be acting out of a sense of inadequacy or projecting their own unresolved issues. This recognition allows you to separate their actions from your sense of self-worth. Instead of meeting disrespect with defensiveness, you can respond with empathy, understanding that their actions are often reflections of their own struggles. This shift in perspective helps to maintain your emotional peace, as you're no longer taking their disrespect personally. Instead, you view it as an opportunity to show compassion and remain calm. By doing so, you also display wisdom by not letting their negativity disturb your peace. Practicing empathy doesn't mean excusing poor behavior, but it does mean recognizing that disrespect may come from a place of pain, and responding with a spirit of generosity rather than retaliation. Moreover, responding with empathy rather than resentment not only strengthens your emotional resilience but also fosters a deeper understanding of human nature. It helps you cultivate a generous spirit, where you can meet even the most difficult situations with equanimity and grace. This perspective allows you to maintain your dignity, regardless of how others behave, and further deepens your stoic practice of compassion and emotional mastery. Conclusion. 4. Use disrespect as an opportunity to strengthen inner peace. One of the core teachings of Stoic philosophy is the cultivation of ataraxia, a state of inner peace that remains undisturbed by external events, including the opinions and actions of others. This emotional independence is not only a central Stoic goal but also a powerful tool in how we can transform the experience of disrespect into an opportunity for growth. By learning to guard our inner peace and detach from the need for external validation, we can develop resilience against the negative impact of others' disrespect. Protect your inner fortress. A powerful metaphor in Stoic philosophy is that of the mind as a fortress. Just as a physical fortress is built to defend against external threats, our minds can be fortified against the harmful effects of external events, including the disrespect of others. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, famously said, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." This Stoic wisdom teaches us that no one can harm us emotionally unless we allow it. The disrespect of others only affects us if we permit it to breach the walls of our mental fortress. When faced with disrespect, we must remind ourselves that we are the ones who decide how we respond. The words or actions of others can only hurt us if we let them penetrate our internal peace. Much like arrows shot at a fortress, their words or actions might come at us, but they can only harm us if we lower our defenses and allow them to affect us. By viewing disrespect in this way, we take full responsibility for our emotional state, recognizing that our peace of mind is within our control. This practice enables us to remain undisturbed, no matter how others behave toward us. Let go of ego. The Stoics understood that much of the emotional pain we experience from disrespect arises because we take it personally. This is where ego becomes a hindrance. Ego, in the Stoic sense, refers to our attachment to external validation and the way we allow others' opinions to define our sense of self. When someone disrespects us, it often stirs up feelings of inadequacy, anger, or sadness because we mistakenly attach our self-worth to their judgment. Epictetus put this into perspective when he famously said, "You are a little soul carrying around a corpse." In other words, we are not our bodies or the fragile opinions others hold of us. Our true essence lies beyond these transient judgments. When we let go of our ego, we free ourselves from the need for approval or recognition from others. This allows us to view disrespect not as a reflection of our worth, but as a projection of the other person's inner world. Their disrespect is more about their own insecurities, biases, or emotional turmoil than it is about us. When we detach from ego, we realize that we are not defined by others' opinions. Our worth remains intact, regardless of whether someone shows us respect or not. By cultivating this understanding, we learn to take no offense when disrespected. Instead of reacting emotionally, we can approach the situation with a clear and composed mind, maintaining our sense of self without being swayed by external judgments. Practice indifference, Stoic apatheia. Apatheia, or serene indifference, is a central Stoic concept that refers to a state of emotional equanimity in the face of both praise and criticism. The Stoics believed that our happiness should not depend on external circumstances, and thus, we should not be moved by the opinions or judgments of others. When someone disrespects us, practicing apatheia means acknowledging that their opinion is just that, an opinion, not a truth. In moments of disrespect, remind yourself, this person's opinion does not define me. Their judgment may be harsh, untrue, or unwarranted, but it holds no power over you unless you give it that power. When we embrace this indifference, we release ourselves from the emotional toll of disrespect. It is liberating to realize that we do not need to engage with or internalize the judgments of others. By practicing this indifference consistently, we become increasingly immune to the emotional effects of disrespect. This practice also frees us from the cycle of seeking validation from others. It encourages us to focus on what truly matters, living in accordance with our values and maintaining inner peace. When we are indifferent to external judgments, we can focus on cultivating virtues like wisdom, courage, and patience, rather than being distracted by the fleeting opinions of others. 5. Take decisive action when necessary, but without bitterness. Stoicism teaches that we should approach life with tolerance and self-control, yet it also recognizes the importance of taking decisive action when our boundaries are crossed. The balance between acceptance and assertiveness is vital. Stoic wisdom does not advocate passivity in the face of mistreatment, rather, it emphasizes thoughtful and calculated responses to situations where action is needed. This approach allows us to maintain our inner peace and integrity while standing firm against disrespect, ensuring that our actions are aligned with our values, free from resentment or bitterness. Know when to walk away. One of the key lessons in Stoic philosophy is knowing when to walk away from toxic or harmful situations. In certain circumstances, the most virtuous course of action is to distance yourself from individuals who repeatedly disrespect you. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "Withdraw into yourself, especially when you are forced into communion with those who are not like you." This statement encapsulates the Stoic approach to disengaging from negativity or toxic influences, not as a form of avoidance, but as a form of self-protection. By choosing to walk away, we are exercising our power to control the environment we engage with. This is not a retreat from conflict, but rather a recognition that sometimes conflict can be a drain on our energy and peace. Stoicism encourages us to assess situations dispassionately and determine whether continuing to engage with someone is beneficial to our emotional well-being. In doing so, we are not allowing disrespect to fester and poison our peace. It's about knowing our limits and taking action to preserve our integrity when it's clear that the other person is not open to respect. Sometimes, walking away is the highest form of self-respect. We don't need to tolerate mistreatment in silence for the sake of harmony. There are instances when silence or physical withdrawal is the most powerful response, signaling that we will not engage with disrespect. This allows us to act without anger or bitterness, protecting our mental clarity and maintaining our focus on what truly matters. Set boundaries with respect and calmness. Stoicism teaches us that boundaries are not about control or manipulation, but about self-respect. Setting clear boundaries is a necessary act of self-care and self-preservation. When dealing with persistent disrespect, it is important to calmly and assertively communicate what is acceptable and what is not. Boundaries are a reflection of our values, and when we express them with respect, we make it clear that our worth and dignity are non-negotiable. For example, when faced with disrespect, a Stoic approach might involve saying something like, "I expect us to speak to each other with respect, and I would appreciate it if you could do the same." This simple, direct statement communicates that you value respect in your interactions, without escalating the situation. It is important to remember that setting boundaries is not about punishing the other person, but about protecting yourself from harm and maintaining your peace. What makes Stoic boundary setting so effective is that it is grounded in calmness and clarity. Instead of reacting impulsively or emotionally to disrespect, a Stoic approach involves expressing your position firmly but calmly. This helps to avoid a power struggle or an emotional conflict, ensuring that you stay grounded in your own values while letting the other person know where you stand. Furthermore, it's crucial to maintain consistency when setting boundaries. When you allow repeated disrespect without consequence, you are signaling that you are willing to tolerate mistreatment. Consistency reinforces your self-respect and reinforces the importance of mutual respect in your relationships. Act without resentment. Perhaps one of the most profound aspects of Stoic philosophy is its emphasis on acting without resentment. Stoicism teaches that the emotional burden of resentment only harms the person who carries it. Seneca wisely noted, "He suffers more than necessary, who suffers before it is necessary." Resentment clouds our judgment and disturbs our peace, and as such, it is incompatible with the Stoic ideal of emotional tranquility. When setting boundaries or removing ourselves from toxic relationships, it is essential to do so without bitterness. Acting without resentment means choosing to protect your peace for the sake of your well-being, not out of a desire to punish or exact revenge. When we hold on to resentment, we allow the disrespectful person to continue to occupy space in our minds, often long after the encounter has ended. This gives them more power over us than they deserve. Instead, Stoicism teaches that we can act decisively to protect ourselves while letting go of any attachment to bitterness or anger. In practical terms, this might mean distancing yourself from someone who continues to disrespect you, but doing so with compassion rather than anger. Rather than harboring negative emotions, focus on the decision at hand. When you remove yourself from a toxic situation, remind yourself that you are doing it for the sake of your own well-being, not because you seek revenge or wish to make the other person feel bad. This frees you from the emotional toll of resentment and empowers you to act with integrity. When we approach disrespect with a mindset of calm, clear decision-making, free from bitterness, we can ensure that we are not only protecting ourselves but also maintaining our own moral compass. We act in accordance with our values, not our impulses, which allows us to rise above the petty dynamics of conflict and focus on what truly matters in our lives. Finding strength in Stoicism. Learning to deal with disrespect is a process, but by applying Stoic principles, you can build a foundation of inner strength that remains unshaken by others' opinions. The Stoics remind us that disrespect from others is simply another challenge on our path to self-mastery. By focusing on your character, practicing emotional discipline, seeking wisdom, cultivating inner peace, and taking action without bitterness, you can face disrespect with the calm resilience that Stoicism champions. In each moment of challenge, remember that you hold the power over your mind, and nothing external can diminish your worth without your consent. True respect, after all, begins within.